Yo, what's up, guys? It's Ben10clem here, back with the Ben10clem poll week 12. Got a couple changes and a couple big upsets on the line that happened. But we're gonna go and get started and start off with our top five. So, number one and number two staying the same. It's Oregon number one, Ohio State number two, and now Texas jumped up 2 spots up to number three. And then Indiana now. They didn't have the best game against Michigan. They were favored, let's see. They were favored by 14.5. They did not meet that spread. In all honesty, I should have probably put them at 5, but that could have just been one of their off games. Plus, they're undefeated. I feel like top 5 in general is where they're at. But they ended up pulling out the win, 15-20 against Michigan, which I was expecting it to be like a 2-touchdown game as well, but wasn't exactly that. So next up is Penn State. Penn State, I forgot to put the green arrow for them, but they jumped up from 7 up to 2 spots as well. So I'll show you guys so you guys know. There you go. From 7 all the way up to 5. And yeah, that was my bad. I forgot to put the little arrow mark for them. Please forgive me. Up next we have 6 through 10, and this one's a little wild in my opinion, but I kind of think it's right. We got number 6, Notre Dame. Still probably a little too high, but after their loss to North Illinois, yeah, but they ended up playing the Seminoles today. It was 52-3. Blew them out. They're 8-1 right now. They played well. The spread was a 25.5 favorite for Notre Dame. They covered that with ease. So they're 6. Number 7 is Tennessee. They won against Mississippi State. It was a home game for the Volunteers. It was 33-14. They had control of the whole game. It really wasn't close. But let's see what the spread was of that game. It was a 26.5 spread game, which, did they even reach that? One sec. No, they technically, 26.5 was the spread. They did not exceed their spread, which I guess is a little disappointing, but I mean, they had control of the whole game, so I feel like that kind of mattered. And as you can see, there's not a Miami or Georgia in the top 5, let alone top 10 now. So it's a little wild. Yeah, okay. Alabama number 8. They had a very surprising blowout win against LSU. I thought LSU was going to win this game, to be honest. I kind of picked them for the underdog situation. It's just Alabama dog walked them. 42-13 going into Death Valley. Does not look good for LSU. It was a 2.5 point favorite for Alabama, and they exceeded that shit by a lot. Alabama didn't have any turnovers, which is rare. Very rare. Jaden Milroe ran the ball a ton. Didn't really pass as much, but ran a lot. That's wild. Like, it seemed like it was just Jaden Milroe's game. and he took control of it. So they're moving up 3 spots to number 8. BYU moving up 1 from 10 to 9, and BYU played at Utah, only won by 1. So I'm not giving them tons of credit. To be honest, I wanted to keep them at 10, but there's Ole Miss and Georgia and all these teams here. It's like, I don't know. So, yeah. Now, Ole Miss is number 10. Last week, they were 13 for me. Ole Miss had an amazing win at home against Georgia. They were not favored to win, but Georgia was favored by 1.5 points. Score, it's Georgia just got outplayed. And it was 28-10. 18-point victory for Ole Miss Rebels, and that's pretty impressive. I feel like they were been underrated. Like, they're 16 in the AP poll. They deserve to be way higher than that. Dart got hurt early on, but I still think he came and just played his heart out and got what he needed. And I mean, there's a lot of turnovers by Georgia, 2 fumbles, 1 interception by Beck. It's just, I don't think Carson Beck's all that it is to be. And now, like, if we look at the standings, like in the SEC, you got Tennessee at 1, Texas A&M at 2, Texas at 3, which I find a little weird that that's the ratings. Georgia and Ole Miss are pretty much tied. I feel like, yeah, so in conference play, it's Georgia then Ole Miss. Right now in conference play, there's like a 3-point difference between a lot of these teams. I mean, Tennessee still has a couple hard matchups, but I think I can see like it being Texas and Texas A&M, which is a rivalry in itself, which is pretty cool. Yeah. And then, talking about Georgia, they're 11, dropped them 8 spots. Boise State, I did not move up at all. They had a close game against Nevada. It was 28-21. It was at Boise State. Nevada's 3-8. They were 3-7 going into this game. They're 0-5 in the conference, and they did not look ideal against them. Each team had 2 turnovers. Ashton Genty did great. He carried the team as always. It makes sense. 34 carries, 209 yards, 3 touchdowns. Definitely carried that game, but realistically should not have been that close. Next up is Miami. Miami got upset against Georgia Tech. At Georgia Tech, if you guys go back and watch my ACC predictions before the year even began, I predicted Georgia Tech beating Miami in this game. And boy, was I right. I was right. Georgia Tech pretty much had control the whole game. They only lost the lead during the 6-minute mark of first quarter, and then they gained the lead back second quarter, and they kept that the whole game. So pretty much the whole second half was just theirs, and they just continued to win and dominate. Yeah, I'm telling you, Yellow Jackets are like a sneaky little team. Like, they come out to play against big opponents, and Miami was 9-point favorites. They ended up losing 28-23, and I was right about the thing. It was a weird thing they were running. They were running Haynes King as like a runner, even though he's a QB. And then they ran their true freshman quarterback for passing. Don't know why exactly. But, I mean, they won, which is crazy. The standings in the SEC is currently, if we look, it's SMU. Wow, hold on. It's SMU. Really, they have Clemson there. I guess because they're 6-1 in the conference. So SMU, Clemson, Miami right now, and then Louisville, Pitt, Georgia Tech. Wait, so you're saying Clemson still has a chance in this? But there would be like a tiebreaker between Clemson and Miami. So you'd realistically need Miami to lose again. Because the Miami beat Louisville, Clemson lost to Louisville, and then SMU beat Louisville. So there's it's kind of hard to say. I don't know exactly what the committee will do. It'd be cool if Clemson makes it in. I think it's neat. But Miami is 13. Clemson jumps up one spot after their win at Virginia Tech, which, to be honest, I thought they'd lose. They did not look good until the second half. And they won 24-14. So I think they were only 6-point favorites. We had one turnover. They had 3. We were 6.5 favorites. We won by 10, so we exceeded it by a little bit. Definitely wasn't the best game for Clemson, but I mean, they won. They needed it. We just need to make sure Clemson wins out to even have a chance. So Clemson's at 14. They were 15 last week. SMU jumps up as well. They were 16. They're now number 15. Texas A&M is now 16. 17 is moving up 2 spots here is Colorado, which I don't know if they have Colorado ranked in the normal season. I'm just trying to look here. Yeah, they do. Okay. They played at Texas Tech, and they won 41-27. I was expecting this game to be a lot closer, so was the ESPN bets at odds at ESPN bet. It was a 4.5 favorite for Colorado. They exceeded that. They outplayed them the whole game, let's be honest. It was not close. It was made to be a little close there in the first half, but it's because it was 13-10 at the end of first half, and then after that they scored 21 points in the third, 10 in the fourth, while they only scored a touchdown each quarter. So it wasn't as close as people thought it was. They just had a heyday with them, and definitely see them securing the playoff for them. It's probably going to be BYU versus Colorado, which is going to be an interesting game. Unless Colorado loses again, which would be the only way, Iowa State has a chance. I mean, they still have to play Utah, at Kansas, which we'll talk about, at Kansas in a bit, and then versus Oklahoma State. I think Utah could get them in trouble, and Kansas can definitely get them in trouble. Even though they're terrible in their conference, when it's at Kansas, I'm telling you, it's a whole different ballgame. So now Kansas State is who I have next. I don't even know if they still have them ranked. I don't think Kansas State played this week. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think they played this week. But I'm moving up 3 points for them because we have a lot of teams that dropped out and teams I had to move up. And I feel like they need to stay where they're at. It just makes sense. So let's take a look real quick. Yeah, because Kansas State is 7-2, 4-2 in the conference, same as Iowa State now, which we'll talk in a bit. Moved Army up one. They were 20. I was gonna kind of keep them at 20, but because so many teams moved up that were not ranked previously, we're gonna leave it like that. There's some teams I definitely should have put ranked last week, especially over Iowa. Like South Carolina, I think they deserve to be in it, and Louisville now. That's on me. I know I'm not a fan of both of those, but that's why I kind of secluded them. But South Carolina is not ranked and now is ranked. They're newly ranked. In my poll, they're now 20th. They have a killer defense. They play really well wherever they play. It's just they're not a bad team. They're definitely not a bad team this year. Clemson's gonna have to watch out for them. South Carolina right now is 6-3 overall. They have some impressive wins. I think they can definitely pull it off. Then we got Louisville. Louisville is on a. Are they on a bye week? I don't think so. I think they might be. No, South Carolina played at Vanderbilt. It was 28-7. I thought Vanderbilt could pull it off, but South Carolina definitely covered it. That's why Vanderbilt is dropped out of the top 25. 21 is Louisville. Louisville just been playing good recently. They're in the same boat as like Clemson. They beat Clemson at Clemson a week ago. 33-21. Clemson just got outplayed. Louisville is 6-3, another 6-3 team that's in the top 25. I have them at 21. Jumping up into going to two spots, I have the Raging Cajuns at 20. Louisiana Raging Cajuns up to. They're playing really good. I think they're a sleeper team for how I know the division they're in isn't that good, but they blew out Arkansas State. And that game spread was a 14.5 point favorite. It was 55-19. Raging Cajuns are 5-0 in their conference, 8-1 in all. But right now, like in the second team of the Sun Belt, they're first. And then the first team in the Sun Belt is Georgia Southern. So I mean, I think it will be Georgia Southern or Marshall versus. I mean, it definitely could be James Madison could come back. I don't know, though. We'll see. I think it's going to be Jordan Southern or Marshall, and I think, what's their face? Louisiana. Just take care of business. They'll win the whole conference with how they've been playing. They've been playing really, really good football. No turnovers that game. They had tons of yards. Contained the Arkansas State Red Wolves and just did really well. Now, I've been regretting to put Washington State in there, but I finally put them in there. They're not bad. They're not great either. So they're like a top 20 team between 20 and 25. So I put them right in the middle of that, 23. And I think that's a good spot for them. They played Utah. It was 28-46. Spread of that game was a 20-point game. They got that identical, so they met their spread. They definitely should have probably won by more, I think. They're in the Pac-2 conference right now, aka Pac-12, and they're definitely leading it. They're 8-1. They're not playing bad. They definitely could be doing better. I mean, it's not that good, but doing better. It's just the conference is like the reason they're not highly ranked. It's really hard. I mean, Luckily, the Pac-12 is getting tons of new players. Or not tons of new teams coming in, like Boise State. Who else? I can't remember all the teams that are going into the Pac-12 starting next year, which is huge because it needs it. It was a dead division, and it still is right now. So getting Boise State added to it, I think, is really good because they're a team that I think deserves to be in that, a little more competitive. They similar, like, equal level-wise. So, yeah. Washington State is now newly ranked at 23. Then we have two teams that dropped a lot, and that was Iowa State and LSU. I really thought about dropping both of those teams out of the top 25, but to be honest, I had no idea who I'd put in for that. Because I'm not high on Missouri, still not, even though they're 7-2. I don't think I'm gonna put them ever in the top 25. Maybe if I do, they're gonna be 24 and 25 spot late in the season. But if they win out, so Iowa State lost today, and they ended up losing at Kansas 45-36. Iowa State just lost exponentially. They played terribly. They just got their asses kicked. They were outplayed. Iowa State was 2.5 favorites. Jayhawks definitely exceeded that. Kansas is now 3-6. They were 2-6. I'm telling you, Iowa State's on the decline. Let's see who they play the rest of the year. They have to play Cincinnati, at Utah, and then Kansas State. Kansas State needs to win that game. Because if Kansas State wins that game and Colorado loses one more game, they're in. So their hopes are not over yet. And Colorado has to play at Kansas, and then they're playing. Utah is coming to play Colorado at Colorado next week. It's interesting. I really could see an upset one of those games. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't count out Kansas State yet, even after their dodgy 2 losses, one against Houston. The BYU loss definitely hit pretty rough. I would love to see a rematch against them on neutral field. Arizona State coming up for Kansas State could be trouble. Cincinnati, they'll take care of business. Iowa State is really what's going to be the decider point. Are you a team that deserves to go up in there and play? And I think they do. I think they can. I'm still pretty high on them. So I'm hoping for the best on that team. They're probably my favorite Pac-12 team. But next up we have LSU dropping 11 points, 11 spots after their little terrible loss to Alabama. You really would think you're playing at home in Death Valley. You really think you'd definitely put up more points than 13, especially against an Alabama team that's been pretty inconsistent. But that game, Alabama just rolled them. Absolutely shit on them. It wasn't close. 42-13 is insane. Teams that dropped out of the ranking is Iowa. I was wrong about them. They played at UCLA on Friday. They lost 20-17. Then Pitt, I dropped out because they ended up losing. And they lost to, where is it? Virginia at Pitt. It was 24-19. Pitt lost. Yeah, Pitt is definitely a little overranked in a lot of people's places because now they're 7-2 now. I get it, they were 7-1, but Pitt's just their 2 losses I think are from teams that SMU makes an understandable loss. Virginia doesn't. Now Clemson has to go play Pitt on the road, and then Louisville has to play Pitt Panthers have to play at Louisville and then at Boston College to end off their season. So to be honest, their season in the end is pretty rough. I need Boston College to beat Miami. Miami needs one more conference loss. Wait, they don't play Boston College. What are we doing? My friends told me they were playing Boston College. Yeah, they're tripping. They play Wake Forest and then at Syracuse. Yeah. The only way would be an upset between any of these teams. The only team I see having a sliver of chance of beating them would be at Syracuse. Syracuse is 6-3. They just had a game that they lost to Boston College. I don't know, dude. It could be a miracle. Clemson's literally got to hope for one of those teams, Wake Forest or Syracuse, to beat them to even have a chance. But I really don't think Clemson's going to make it this year. It's probably going to be Miami versus SMU. Unless they have a tiebreaker, it's going to be really, really weird. And somehow they snub Miami, but I don't think they'll do that. But we're going to go ahead and continue talking. I also dropped Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt played today, and it was... Where did they play? Okay, it was South Carolina at Vanderbilt. South Carolina won 28-7. And to be honest, I should have had South Carolina and Louisville ranked last week. But with how many teams lost last week and dropped, it's like shit. Some of these teams I should really end up keeping in, and some of them I probably should have dropped out. But other than that, this is my rankings. Iowa State on the down. LSU on the down low. Those are the 2 teams that are definitely suffering the most. And Georgia on their second loss, they got to be careful because I don't think they're going to play in the playoffs, or they won't get a bye, I don't think, unless Tennessee does have a rough end of their schedule, I'm pretty sure. Because Tennessee plays at Georgia next versus UTEP and then at Vandy. I guess Georgia is their only hard game, but if Georgia does not win that, they're not going to get a chance to go to the conference championship. They have to beat Tennessee, and then Texas or Texas A&M has to lose another game for them to have a chance to get in. And Texas A&M plays New Mexico State at Auburn, then versus Texas, which that's pretty crazy. So, to be honest, I think Texas will beat Texas A&M. So, if we look at the rest of Texas's schedule, they play at Arkansas versus Kentucky and then at Texas A&M. I think it's going to be a rematch, and it's going to be Georgia versus Texas. But it all depends on did the teams that have played each other, Tennessee, did they play? What's their fate? They beat Alabama. Georgia didn't. So there's tons of cases oh shit, these teams lost to certain other teams. Is that going to affect them? Like Ole Miss, they lost to Kentucky and lost to LSU. They beat Georgia today. They won at South Carolina, which is a good win. Arkansas was a good win for them. It's really hard to see who will end up making it and who won't. It's interesting to see. LSU, I don't think, has a chance anymore, especially 2 losses in a row, and then they have to play at Florida, Vanderbilt, and Oklahoma. I think we can call LSU out of the picture, the ACC at least. But right now, that's all the games that really happened this week, and the teams that I dropped out of my rankings. The one I was a little depressed in was like Indiana. Definitely could have played a lot better. I get it; it's against Michigan. Michigan's not strong this year, but it's still a Michigan team. I was hoping for a lot more points there, and they can prove themselves that they're really, really good, like playoff contender, like semifinal playoff predictor. Yeah, like right now the Big Ten and the SEC leading everything because you got Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana, Penn State. All 3 of those teams, or all 4 of those teams in the Big Ten, and all of them are in the top 5. Then you got the SEC, which has the number 3 spot, number 7 spot, number 8 spot, number 10 spot, number 11 spot, number 16 spot, number 20 spot, and number 25 spot. They're pretty damn tight. Big Ten only really has those teams that are up there. If we look here at the Big Ten, it's interesting to see that they have us above Miami right now for conference, and I am a little surprised because I think it should be like Miami. It would be SMU, Miami, Clemson, but yeah, I don't know when the conference-wise would play type of guess, but yeah, the only 4 ranked teams in the Big Ten is India, Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State. We always look at Notre Dame. They kind of fly under the radar. They are 8-1. Destroyed Florida State. Destroyed Navy. Destroyed Georgia Tech. Destroyed Stanford. Beat Louisville. Beat Miami of Ohio. Destroyed Purdue. Beat Texas A&M early in the season, except their their first loss or second game was against Northern Illinois, and they lost by 2. I think that was a fluke of a game, and people call Notre Dame overranked. I'm going to start fighting those people and saying they're not really overranked. They've been playing good. They've been playing good against all the other teams after that loss. Like, Louisville is close, but they're playing good. I don't know what else to tell you. They still have to play Army, and at USC, Army's probably the hardest game left, and it's like right now they're 12th in the nation in rushing yards, 105th in passing, so they don't pass a lot. Tied for 18th for points per game, and then points against, they're 4th. Like if we check full team stats, is this gonna show like? Yeah. Okay. So if we look at the offense here, right now, offense wise, the best offense is Miami, Ole Miss, Mean Green, Texas, Boise State, Clemson. Those are your best offenses. Yeah, which is kind of wild. The best defenses, we look at that. You got Texas, Ohio State, Indiana, Tennessee, Army. Notre Dame's there at number 8. So I mean, there's some really good defenses this year. I really don't think people are realizing the teams that there are this year and the chances that they have. So if we look at Clemson now, after this, I don't know if they fully updated it in their conference, but I think they definitely have a higher chance now than they do. But we'll have to see because the tiebreaker is going to be a little weird. If we go to efficiencies, Ohio State has the best efficiency overall out of defense, offense, defense, special teams. Ole Miss is second. I'm telling you, that's why they were so underrated. They are easily a top 10 team. Even having 2 losses, they are a top 10 team. Indiana, third. I have them at fourth. Georgia, fourth. Arguably, I think they'd beat BYU, to be honest. But just because BYU is still undefeated, I'm keeping them where they're at. Texas is fifth in efficiencies. It's just like, there's a lot of chances to see where all this goes and what ends up happening. Because I think there's a lot of there's a lot of season left that has to be played. Curious to see where it takes us and how things go. But if you guys agree with the rankings, let me know down below. Reminder, Penn State jumped from 7 up 2 spots, and I did forget to put the little the green arrow for the 2. But yeah, that's going to be the rankings for week 12, top 25 Ben10clem poll. Let me know if y'all agree, and I shall see y'all tomorrow for me comparing the AP poll and the college football poll. Anyways, see you guys next time. Blue missed out. Peace.